AJC has been an unfailingly unifying force in a time of division and polarization. It's been an institutional voice of cool and calm reason in an age of red-hot passions. AJC plays the long game.
Please welcome past AJC National President, Harriet Schleifer.
I'm going to go off script for a minute, and I just want to thank the professionals and the staff of AJC. They are outstanding. So, this morning, we began our final theme of the conference, Shape a New Future, by exploring the most pressing challenges and opportunities for the Jewish people and Israel through the lens of AJC's unparalleled global architecture. From strengthening emerging geopolitical alignments between the United States, Latin America, and Israel, to advancing Israel's engagement across Asia and deepening partnerships throughout Africa, to examining the evolving realities of Jewish life and community resilience in Europe, we saw how AJC's global network drives impact region by region. We examined how to confront anti-Semitism at the highest levels of international institutions, including the United Nations, while also translating that advocacy into concrete policy, such as legislation to protect Jewish students here in the United States. Together, these conversations underscored how AJC's integrated global and domestic strategy, spanning our regional offices and international institutes, positions us not only to respond to challenges, but to shape the future of Jewish life worldwide. In this morning's plenary, we will continue to look toward the future, beginning with a conversation on bipartisanship in a divided time, featuring two very good friends of the Jewish people and the state of Israel, United States Senators from Pennsylvania, John Fetterman and Dave McCormick. We are grateful to both senators for their steadfast allyship and moral clarity, and we are honored that they have taken the time to be with AJC today. But before we bring the senators on stage for a conversation with Ted, we want to take one more moment to mark America's 250th anniversary and spotlight another group of American Jews who have made great contributions to our country. Throughout our history, hundreds of thousands of American Jews have served in our armed forces, including more than 550,000 in World War II alone, and more than 11,000 made the ultimate sacrifice. Jewish War Veterans of the USA, JWV, the nation's longest active veterans service organization, is celebrating their 130th anniversary. In 1896, in response to an anti-Semitic trope that Jews didn't serve in the Union Army during the Civil War, 63 of approximately 7,000 Jews who served formed the JWV. The organization was created to answer anti-Semitism with their proven service, patriotism, and remembrance. For 130 years, JWV members have answered the call of duty and stood on the front lines in defense of our country. As veterans, they have continued this mission, supporting other veterans fighting anti-Semitism and preserving the memory and service of those who served before. At AJC, together with JWV, we are proud to acknowledge and celebrate the service of American Jews 7 of whom are here with us today. Please join me in welcoming these distinguished veterans to the stage. Sergeant David Warnock, enlisted in the United States Army in 2005 as an infantryman in the 1st Infantry Division and deployed to the West Rashid area of Baghdad in 2006. He was wounded by an IED and medically evacuated and recovered. His unit was later redesignated the 172nd Separate Infantry Brigade, and he was promoted to sergeant. He deployed to Iraq again in 2008 as a rifle team leader. His battalion task force led one of the final kinetic operations of the war. David is an AJC leader on our Access Global board and also in Seattle. Thank you, Sergeant Warnock. Lieutenant Commander Joseph Simons, Navy, served as an intelligence officer and Arabic interpreter for Special Operations Forces throughout the Middle East in support of the global war on terror. He is also a former AJC Access leader who is now joining our professional team as the incoming director of AJC Access Global. Thank you, Lieutenant Commander Simons. Colonel Danny Menashe, Air Force, flew over 70 refueling missions over Afghanistan and Iraq in support of operations enduring and Iraqi freedom. Thank you, Colonel Menashe. Brigadier General Michael Mann. Retired Army. Served in Afghanistan as Deputy Commander of the 143rd Sustainment Command, supporting combat operations throughout the country. Thank you, Brigadier General Mann. Colonel Daniel Gerstein, retired Army. Served with the 3rd Armored Division as the division signal officer in the First Gulf War. Later, he served as battalion commander with the implementation force in Bosnia. Thank you, Colonel Gerstein. Colonel Louis Wetstein. Retired U.S. Air Force, served in the first Gulf War. He was a state air surgeon for New Jersey and commander of the 514th Medical Squad. Thank you, Colonel Wetstein. I also add that the Lieutenant Colonel is a member of AJC's National Leadership Council. Colonel Harvey Kaplan. Retired Army, served 2 tours in Vietnam as the commander of a combat engineer company and a supply officer for a combat engineer group. Thank you, Colonel Kaplan. 102-year-old very fitting for our 120th, goals to reach greater heights. Colonel Albert Jacob served in World War II as an Army Air Corps radio operator in China, Burma, India theater. Thank you, Colonel Jacobs. Thank you all for your service, and I know that we speak for all of us when I say that you make us all incredibly proud. And now, please join me in welcoming Senator John Fetterman, Senator Dave McCormick, and AJC CEO Ted Deutch.
Senators, welcome to the Global Forum stage. As a native of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, I have really been looking forward to this. AJC, as you know, is fiercely nonpartisan. We pride ourselves in being able to convene bipartisan conversations like these. This is such an important moment for our conference. It's such an important moment for our conference, and we're especially proud to be able to do this conversation with 2 leaders who have been such champions for the Jewish community, the fight against anti-Semitism, all of the issues that are so important to AJC and to the Jewish people. And I want to start just by thanking you. You both have spoken clearly and with incredible moral clarity about Israel and about anti-Semitism at a time when, unfortunately, that is increasingly rare. We do not, please understand, we do not take that for granted. Your leadership is greatly appreciated. For the first question, I want to begin with the backdrop of America's upcoming 250th. As an organization committed to bipartisanship and focusing on policy over politics, concerned about rising polarization and partisanship, that has us, I have to say, really worried. And yet, here are the two of you, not just colleagues, but friends, sitting here from two different parties, something that we have been led to believe is increasingly difficult. We just had the opportunity to thank these veterans. I thank you for your service, Senator McCormick. I thank you both for your service to the Senate. From your vantage point, is the partisan environment that we live in now as bad as it seems? Is there bipartisanship that's still functioning behind the scenes, or is the reality somewhere in between? Senator Fetterman, we'll start with you.
Well, I mean, we're great friends, to be clear, you know, and there are people that are angry at me to do things and to just reach across the aisle right now, and it is getting more and more partisan and more ugly. But I will always strongly reject all of those kinds of things and ever engage in the kinds of the slurs and describe things in extreme kinds of ways. You know, we will fight for wins for Pennsylvania and for our country, and you know, and when we disagree, you know, our views will be reflected in our votes. It's not going to be about insults and describing other people in terrible kind of terms. So I'm proud to be here on the stage with him, and we just were that 2 days ago, whatever already. So so it's great to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Senator McCormick.
Well, I feel very lucky to have John Fetterman as my colleague. We live not far from each other. We met for the first time on the 5th anniversary of the Tree of Life. And I was running. Senator Fetterman was already in the Senate. I live in Squirrel Hill, right around the corner from the Tree of Life. Senator Fetterman was a couple miles away. And we had a conversation then, and then when I was fortunate enough to win, we sat down and got to know each other, and we agreed on the following things. We disagree on a lot of things. I vote with my party most of the time, he votes with his party most of the time, but we started with the premise we want to work together every way we can. And so we have authored all sorts of joint legislation on fentanyl, on nuclear energy, on farming and agriculture in Pennsylvania, on anti-Semitism, and that's what Pennsylvanians expect. And so I trust him. I trust him more than I trust most anybody else in the Senate, which is saying something. And I look for opportunities to work with him.
Where does that trust come from?
Well, I think in my case, from the very first day, Senator Fetterman said, listen, I have no interest in games. I have no tolerance for games. I had a near-death experience, and I just want to do good for the people of Pennsylvania. I ran on that same premise. I said during the campaign, listen, whether you vote for me or not, I want to work as hard as I can to represent you. And Pennsylvania, as John often says, it keeps you honest, because it's a place where you have to build a coalition of people to get things done. And so I feel fortunate to have Senator Fetterman as my colleague to do that.
Thank you. I want to come back to the idea of moral clarity, something that we have long emphasized is vitally important, particularly in public spaces. And that's especially the case since October 7th. Both of you have spoken clearly about Israel's right to defend itself and about the ways that rhetoric around Israel fuels real-world violence against the Jewish community. So let me ask, again, circling back to where you come from. You're both from Pennsylvania. It is a state with a an important, but I think we can agree modestly sized Jewish population. What has motivated you to be such outspoken advocates on these issues, and why aren't there more leaders speaking this way, Senator McCormick?
Well, in my case, as I said, I live in Pittsburgh, right around the corner from Tree of Life, and so I've been very aware of issues affecting the Jewish community. But following October 7th, my wife and I went to Israel within 2 months. We saw firsthand, we witnessed what had happened on that horrible day, the surprise attack, the barbarism we went through, Kafar Azah. We met with people that had escaped. We met with the families of the hostages. We watched the horrific video, which I'm sure some of you have seen, taken from the body cams of the terrorist. And so you can't come away from that without thinking we need to do everything we can to support Israel, and that Israel has every right, not only has every right to defend itself, but can't live 600 meters away from people who want to slit their throats in the middle of the night. So this is, that conviction comes from seeing it firsthand. But the second thing that happened was a second surprise attack, which as a non-Jewish person, I knew there was anti-Semitism, but what came after on the campuses of the University of Pennsylvania, on the streets of Philadelphia, in Pittsburgh, where a young campaign worker on my campaign was attacked, was this rise of anti-Semitism and hatred and hateful rhetoric. And so that also strengthened my conviction that we need to stand up. So both the Senator and I said we got to fire Liz McGill at Penn. You can't sanction. You have to stand strong against this kind of hatred. And he's been an incredible voice on this every day since.
Thank you. Senator Fetterman, I know I speak for everyone here in telling you that in the period, especially after October 7th, when we were all so troubled, concerned, and fearful of what we were seeing playing out in the streets and the rhetoric that we heard, there were many occasions where you appeared and your statements appeared just at the moment when we needed to be fortified. Where does that come from? And again, how do we get more people to do it? Why aren't there more people willing to do it?
Well, I mean, I'm a student of history, and what history has consistently always demonstrated that people and societies will turn their backs to the Jewish community when they're under siege. And now I've always promised that I will never be part of that. And now, especially in my party as a Democrat, I early on, assumed that this was going to happen, and I announced I plan to be the last man standing throughout all of it. And I don't think that coming up on 2 years ago, when the Prime Minister gave a joint address to the House and the Senate there, and people in my party wouldn't look at him. They would turn their back to him, wouldn't hold his, shake his hand, do this basic courtesy kind of thing. That's wild. And the entire party was pushing for a ceasefire. Could you imagine where the circumstances would be right now if Israel was pushed into a ceasefire? Sinwar would be alive. Hamas would have been able to declare a victory. Hezbollah would be able to launch thousands and thousands of rockets here at civilians in Israel too. And Iran, my gosh, how close could they have been to build a nuclear bomb? And now, but the Prime Minister understood that's what's necessary. And then the beepers hit, boom, I love it. And then they put Hezbollah in check and beat them back, eliminated Sinwar, and up till just a couple days ago, they keep wasting all of the leaders of Hamas, The IDF finish them off before even the new business cards come in. And, that's not defending. That's what they also have the right to just go in there and go after these kind of people that are committed to kill Jews and destroy the state of Israel. The problem is Iran and its proxies. It's never going to be about Israel. And finally, I'm tired of hearing about this question of should Israel exist? It's like, yeah, 100%. It's not going anywhere, and I'm always gonna vote for whatever Israel needs, military, financial, or intelligent, whatever that it's in. They are. It's a miracle, and it's a paragon of democracy and the kinds of values that we live here in our nation in that entire region.
Should we go on or just,
just let him go?
Let him go, yeah.
Just let him talk.
Senator McCormick, let me actually follow up with both of you on this issue of anti-Semitism within politics. Republicans have aggressively criticized anti-Semitism on the left and on college campuses. You've also acknowledged an anti-Semitism element inside the Republican Party. Within the Republican Party, is there a serious enough acknowledgement that the threat posed by voices like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, influential figures who spread anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, that those are being taken as seriously as they need to?
Well, listen, there's certainly anti-Semitism on both sides, but I don't think we can have equality there. I think we don't have any people in the Republican Party that are running for office with Nazi tattoos on their chest, right? And and with mainstream Democrats going to Maine to campaign for Graham Plattner. So I do think that this problem has really gained traction and become a very significant part of the Democratic Party. But as you say, there is a rise of this on both sides, and so Nicholas Fuentes is a good example. And when he's speaking out, I'm saying, no, that's not part of my party. That's not part of my values. That's not someone I want to have to Thanksgiving dinner, and we shouldn't platform those voices as well. But I would differentiate between social media, where there's certainly a lot of that, and what's happening on the ground. And I think this is the kind of thing where we cannot sanction in any way. When we see evidence of anti-Semitism, whether it's in our public schools, whether it's on university campuses, whether it's in our own party, we have to speak out strongly against it.
And thank you for that. It's harder to speak out when it's within your own party. Senator Fetterman, as you alluded to, you've consistently broken with progressive voices that have all too often defended Hamas while you have defended Israel's war against Hamas. They've protested in the street and supported marches against Israel and the existence of Israel, while you have criticized those. And you've warned powerfully and loudly about encroaching anti-Semitism on the far left. I asked Senator McCormick about the Republican Party. In the Democratic Party, how is it that there is now, in some circles within the Democratic Party, there is a need to be anti-Israel, simply to be accepted in those circles? How is it that those litmus tests now exist, and how should the party respond?
Look at the people that are winning the primaries in our party right now, and look at their views on Israel. We're old enough to remember that if somebody had a Nazi tattoo, they're a Nazi sympathizer. But now it's like, that's okay. People will defend that, or they'll just kind of explain that away. But now this is a guy that was absolutely cheering Hamas. There was a video that Hamas put online where they killed and beat and tortured IDF soldiers, and he said, I dig it. What kind of a ghoul lurks on the internet, back in 2014, celebrating that kind of barbarity? Well, that's the kind of guy that would have that kind of a tattoo. And that's part of the people also in our state too. Rab, he won, and he ran on and being a very, very anti-Israel and that. So that's the one thing that's not just acceptable, it's actually a virtue for increasingly, and that's heartbreaking for me. And if it isolates me, then so be it, because there's always going to be a moral clarity, and it's been the easiest choice I've ever made here in my political career.
And we're enormously grateful for that. I want to be clear, though. Within some circles, yes, But in terms of being isolated, there are, and this is the moment where I make clear, AJC is a nonpartisan organization. There are a lot of people in this room, there are a lot of good Democrats all across the country who also will look at statements in defense of Hamas and draw the only conclusion that they can, which is there's no place for this in politics.
Candidates and Democrats will campaign and proudly stand with Hassan Piker. You know, this is an individual that Hamas is 1,000% better than Israel and all other kinds of things. And now America deserved 9/11. You know, they will campaign with this guy like it's like their new mascot. And you know, the New York Times can't get enough of him. You know, they give him an opportunity to talk to someone like that. That's part of the party is going, and that's where we are now. Look who's winning, see in these primaries.
And the importance of having voices that say, these are voices, these extremists should not be platformed by anyone running for office. That's where the vast majority of Americans are, and we thank you for that principled stand. Finally, I want to just circle back to where we started, which is walking on stage and having the opportunity to greet all of these veterans. And America at 250. It sends a really powerful message that the two of you are here on stage together. What do you say to Americans who now believe that principled disagreements with mutual respect is no longer possible? And as America marks this anniversary after this challenging conversation, what gives you hope? Senator Fetterman?
I mean, America is still a young nation. Now, Israel is a very, very young nation now, too. There are people here on the stage that actually fought in World War II. I mean, that's still living history and living heroes. And now let's talk about what now we are at the party. People in our party proudly announced they will now vote against Iron Dome. You know, purely defensive, saves tens of thousands of people. I've seen these capabilities, you know, with my eyes when I visited Israel. Now you're going to vote against that? And then even an organization like J Street now said that's okay. That's their official view. You know, that's political cover for people to vote against these things. And now it's heartbreaking if America would ever decide not to provide, you know, aid to Israel. That's our special ally. And if you look at the challenges that they have, describe it in the kinds of term. It's disgusting, and use terms like genocide or that they're the aggressor or anything like that. You know, history, that's a community that really understands what that term really means, and they've lived through that.
Senator McCormick, those guys behind us, yourself, put your lives on the line to defend our country. America's 250 years old. How should we be thinking about
I'm going to say something sort of counterintuitive based on our conversation, but I mean, I'm optimistic about America's future. I think it's the greatest country in the world, and a friend had shared with me, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with the letter from George Washington in 1790, where it was a welcome to the children of Abraham, where he talked about a country where religious faith would be free, and that the Jewish people and all Americans would have the opportunity to prosper. If George Washington could have imagined in 1790 the America we have today, the prosperity, the incredible opportunity for all of us, including the Jewish people, it would have been staggering how wildly successful America has been in living true to its values, and at times moments of dark chapters. But if you look at the line, these are squiggles. And I think we're in a moment where people are questioning, quite rightly, we need to reassert our commitment to those values, and it'll be about leadership. But America, time and again, has shown the resilience to do so, just as the Jewish people have time and again shown the resilience to do so. So I think in this 250th, we should obviously stare hard at the problems and the challenges, but we should not lose sight of the miraculous opportunity and success that America has brought to all of us.
We're so fortunate. We are so fortunate to have the two of you working together across the aisle to confront these issues together. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being at AJC's Global Forum. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Please welcome AJC President Bobby Lapin.
Good morning, everyone. What a start to today's Global Forum. I hope you are as energized and enthused by what we're all hearing as I am. And as I learned a number of years ago very wisely to follow Harriet Schleifer's lead, I'm going to ask you to join me one more time in giving an enormous round of applause to the entire AJC professional team who has put this all together. On to a little more serious topic. As we are all too well aware, since October 7th, communities across the United States, as we know, have faced a very sustained rise in violence, intimidation, and targeted attacks. Our synagogues, our schools, our community institutions, our public gatherings have all required heightened security as threats against Jewish Americans in our community institutions have become more frequent and more severe. AJC's State of Antisemitism Report 2025 reveals that 91% of American Jews, 91%, say that they feel less safe in America because of the violent anti-Semitic attacks of the past year, of which we're so well aware, including, of course, the horrific murders of Sarah Milgram and Yaron Lashinsky at the Capitol Jewish Museum, the firebombing outside of Boulder, which took the life of Karen Diamond, and of course the arson attack against Governor Josh Shapiro that targeted him and his family while they were sleeping in his residence in Pennsylvania. For AJC, confronting these threats is not only a matter of communal security, it is a necessary responsibility for the sustenance of our democracy. Protecting Jewish Americans, indeed protecting all Americans from hate-based violence, requires determined leadership from government, from law enforcement, and from civil society. This morning, we are honored to welcome a public official whose responsibilities place her at the center of that effort. And I will tell you that her dedication to this task, as you will hear, reflects the earnestness with which she has assumed those responsibilities. As Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division of the United States Department of Justice, Harmeet Dillon oversees the enforcement of federal civil rights laws, including laws that are designed to combat hate-based violence, to protect religious communities, and to uphold equal protection under the law. In furtherance of that task, she has demonstrated a welcome willingness to engage directly with communities, and she has, on numerous occasions, traveled directly to synagogues across the country which have been affected or targeted by anti-Semitism. Now, those of us who are members of AJC's Board of Governors and the National Leadership Council had the privilege of hearing from Assistant Attorney General Dillon at our National Council Leadership fly-in in November here in Washington. And we are deeply appreciative of her making herself available to join us here again today for an important update of her work and of how the Department of Justice and the administration are responding to this rise in anti-Semitic violence and intimidation targeting our Jewish community. And I would be remiss, especially in this room, not to note that we are also especially grateful to Assistant Attorney General Dillon for her leadership in ensuring that the individual responsible for the murders of Sarah and Yaron is brought to justice. So, at a moment in our history when many Jewish Americans are questioning their sense of safety and security, these issues obviously carry profound importance for all of us, not only for the Jewish community, but for the broader strength of the rule of law and the promise of equal protection in our society at large. And so please join me in giving a warm welcome to the Assistant Attorney General for the United States for Civil Rights, Harmeet Dillon.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction and for all of you for inviting me again. Since I was last here addressing your leadership in November, we've had a new mayor in New York who's turned up the rhetoric on this community and other negative developments. But I'm here to share some of the things that the United States Department of Justice and this administration are doing to support the Jewish community. We gather during a very difficult time and a challenging time for this community. Jews across the world have seen an uptick in persecution, hate, and harassment, and the violence, hatred, and egregious examples of anti-Semitism that have transpired here at home on American soil over the last 2.5 years are devastating and antithetical to our values as a nation. But the Jewish community is strong, and its resolve is unwavering. Despite the discrimination, intimidation, and violence that no community should ever have to face, Jews across America and the world continue to fight back, even amidst these hardships. The fight against anti-Semitism is not one just for the Jewish community. It is a call to action that all decent people worldwide, and certainly all Americans, must answer. And I'm proud to be in a room with all of you who have answered this call. I've made my commitment to answer the call as well. Since I took the helm of the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division in April of last year, I've committed myself and the DOJ's efforts to ensuring that acts of anti-Semitism are met with the urgency and swift action that they deserve. No person in this country of any faith should live in fear simply because of his or her beliefs. Our division works tirelessly to ensure that American Jews feel safe, protected, and free to live out their faith without fear. In March, our division sued Harvard University for tolerating race and national origin discrimination against both Jewish and Israeli students. After October 7th, anti-Semitic mobs at Harvard and other campuses harassed and intimidated these students all across the campus. Harvard failed to take meaningful action, and it failed to enforce its own rules in an equal manner. Its own presidential task force documented the exclusion of Israeli and Zionist students from social spaces and extracurricular activities, but these findings were ignored. Harvard's actions are inexcusable, and it cannot continue to take taxpayer dollars while turning a blind eye to abuse against Jewish and Israeli students. Thank you. But our enforcement of this nation's federal civil rights laws has not ended there. In April, we reached a settlement with a Massachusetts school district where Jewish children and teens had anti-Semitic symbols drawn at their schools and where they were on the receiving end of derogatory language from their classmates. The district has now agreed to revise its policies, respond promptly to every incident of anti-Semitism, protect complainants from retaliation, conduct full and fair investigations, and designate a district-level employee whose sole responsibility is overseeing compliance with these basic civil rights norms. Jewish students, thank you. Jewish students, like any other children, K through 12 or higher education, should not face ethnic and religious abuse, and they should be able to go to their schools without fear. The division is vigorously enforcing our laws to prevent violent attacks on people of faith, including Jews. Just last month, we charged a California man who launched a horrific attack on an unsuspecting Jewish man who was simply walking his dog in his neighborhood. And by the way, this was in the fall of 2024, and this incident went unpunished until this last month when we concluded our investigation. The perpetrator traveled from San Diego to Los Angeles, specifically to attend a protest outside the Adas Torah synagogue in the Pico Robertson neighborhood of Los Angeles. And I visited this synagogue after the attack. He approached a Jewish man, simply walking his dog, from behind and punched him in the jaw. He posted a screenshot of his assault on his Instagram account and photographed his own bruised knuckles. In another message to a user, he said this was a satisfying attack on the Zios. This behavior is disgustingly un-American, and our division will see these charges through to their lawful conclusion. Just last week, we filed a lawsuit against UCLA for its deliberate indifference to race and national origin discrimination in violation of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And recently, I was in LA after a speaker was shouted down at UCLA just a couple of weeks ago, and I heard from a recent UCLA law grad, and it almost brought tears to my eyes. He described how he was standing there on campus and a student stood behind him, holding a large sign behind his head with a large red triangle pointing down at him. This is outrageous behavior in America, and this administration will not tolerate. Mass demonstrators at UCLA erected an encampment outside the university's halls. Demonstrators came armed. They inflicted violent pain on Jewish students. They doused Jewish students with pepper spray, knocked them unconscious, formed human phalanxes to physically block Jewish and Israeli students from entering academic buildings, and UCLA stood by and watched, refusing to enforce its own rules. Now we're calling UCLA to account for also perpetrating this type of behavior on its students, and there is another case involving discrimination against employees of the UC system as well, who are Jewish. The Civil Rights Division will fight anti-Semitism in our American universities and elsewhere, wherever we will find it. The fight for the Jewish community's rights to learn, worship, and live freely is not a fight that I or the Civil Rights Division take lightly. It's a fight that I am personally committed to because no person in this country should ever have to live in fear because of his belief or who or where he came from. With every institution and individual we hold accountable, our Civil Rights Division fights tirelessly to protect America's Jewish community. As long as I hold this office, the Civil Rights Division will keep showing up for the children who want to feel safe in their schools and on their campuses, for the families who want to pray in peace, for every Jew who has seen the news headlines and wondered whether his or her community will find justice. My division is willing to act and is determined to make sure Jewish Americans feel the full protection of United States federal law. Thank you. Thank you.
Please welcome Director of the AJC William Petchek Global Jewish Communities Department, Dr. Alexandra Herzog, and Chair of the Jewish Representative Council of Ireland, Maris Cohen.
Good morning. Morris, I'm honored to be here with you today. Ireland's Jewish community may be small in number, but it is proud, historic, resilient, and deeply woven into Irish life. Can you share how your community is doing these days?
Sure, Alexandra. And to everyone, thank you at AJC. We are very excited to work with you. I'd say the answer is complicated. Ours is a community of roughly 2,500 Jews. Small communities feel pressure quickly, and since October the 7th, there's no question that the atmosphere has changed, not only politically, but socially, emotionally as well. Many Irish Jews feel less comfortable expressing openly who they are.
Ireland has become one of the strongest critics of Israel within the European Union. And what begins as criticism of Israel can create an atmosphere where Jews locally can feel scrutinized or even unwelcome. One important thing your community did was begin documenting incidents directly.
Yes, Alexandra, within 6 months, our community documented 143 anti-Semitic incidents, including harassment, intimidation, exclusion, and threats to everyday life. And we know the real number is much higher. This means students choosing not to wear Jewish symbols, parents worrying about their children at schools, professionals being cautious about what they say and who they say it to, people hesitating before mentioning family connections to Israel. These are calculations that Jews throughout history know all too well. And to be clear, Ireland is actually beginning to look like the 1930s in Europe. But Jewish communities recognize patterns early because history teaches us so.
And yet, Jewish communities continue to respond with resilience and pride. I know that AJC, especially my colleague, Rabbi Andrew Baker, worked very closely with you last year ahead of Prime Minister Michal Martin's official visit to Washington. Together, we worked on preparing the meeting with the Prime Minister, during which AJC raised the increase in anti-Semitic incidents, the demonization of Israel, and the need for concrete measures to combat anti-Semitism.
And we're very happy that AJC engaged with the Taoiseach and worked with us to prepare for the meeting. Another moment that deeply affected our community was the effort to rename Herzog Park in Dublin, named after your dear grandfather, Chaim Herzog, 6th President of Israel. And also a proud son of Ireland. For many Jews, it felt as though Jewish history itself had suddenly become negotiable. That is why it mattered so much when you stood with us there publicly in Herzog Park to light the second Hanukkah candle. And AJC support helped ensure this was understood not simply as a local issue, but as part of a broader conversation about historical memory, respect, and the place of Jews in Irish society.
Thank you very much, Morris. What struck me during that moment was not only the challenge itself, which was deeply personal to me, but the determination of your community to stand tall with dignity and pride. Hundreds of people gathered publicly despite real security concerns. That spirit is what Jewish solidarity is ultimately about. Communities standing together across borders and ensuring that no Jewish community ever feels isolated.
And Alexandra, that support has a very, very real impact. Small communities can sometimes feel alone. Knowing there are partners standing beside us changes that profoundly. It reminds us we are part of a global Jewish people, connected across countries, generations, and communities.
That sense of global Jewish solidarity is more important now than ever, because anti-Semitism does not stop at borders, and neither can our response. That's why today, I am pleased to announce AJC is formalizing its partnership with the Jewish community of Ireland, our 43rd Jewish Community Partnership Agreement globally, after many years of working closely together. Together, we have engaged Irish officials, diplomats, and civil society leaders on the importance of combating the horrific rise of anti-Semitism, not only reactively, but also proactively. And we look forward to strengthening our collaboration. And one thing I deeply appreciate about our work together is that it has never only been about responding to crisis, it has also been about ensuring that Jewish life in Ireland can continue to flourish openly and proudly.
I am very honored that we are formalizing our partnership. Thanks to friendships like this one, Ireland's Jewish community knows that we do not stand alone. And Alexandra, before we finish up, I want to take you back almost a century to the early 1930s, two boys, barely bar mitzvah, sat beside one another, sharing a desk in a classroom in the center of Dublin, in Ireland. The world around them was changing. The state of Israel did not yet exist. They could never have imagined that 100 years later, two people would stand together in Washington, D.C., championing Israel and confronting anti-Semitism. And those two boys were my uncle, and Alexandra, the other boy, was your grandfather, Chaim Herzog.
Thank you very much for sharing that story, Morris, and I'm sure they would be very proud. You absolutely do not stand alone. Morris, thank you so much for your friendship, your leadership, your partnership, and for reminding us why Jewish solidarity matters. We are proud to stand with the Jewish community of Ireland today, and we will continue standing with you in the years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jake Rammer. I go to the University of Chicago. I'm representing Maroons for Israel. If I'm being honest, I really didn't think I was going to be that involved in Jewish life on campus. But 2 weeks into my campus career, October 7th happened. I lost a lot of friends, a lot of non-Jewish friends, because of the fact that I wouldn't take their side on the conflict during Shabbos. I was walking with a group of Orthodox students with our yarmulkes on to one of our friends' apartments, and members of the encampment took pictures of us. And then that night I was cornered in my dorm by a group of students who said I was intimidating the encampment that morning. And then when they showed me why I was intimidating them, it was a picture of me wearing my yarmulke. That was kind of my last straw. This could not stand, and we had to speak up for ourselves. I started becoming involved with Maroons for Israel. Maroons for Israel is our pro-Israel advocacy organization on campus, and we want to make sure that every single person is felt supported in one way or another, and we foster proper dialogue. We began hosting events with speakers such as the Consul General of Israel and even hostage families. These conversations were ways that we began dialogue in our communities, and we wanted to start a way of normalizing Israel the same way that every other country is on our campus. A lot of students weren't willing to listen, but in our mind, if we could even change one person's mind in that entire year, it means that we did an effective job. And I can honestly say that I think we changed many people's minds on our campus. Students do have power, do have the ability to actually make change in our campus communities. Thank you so much to the Greene family for bestowing this honor on myself and Maroons for Israel. Advocacy was not my goal coming into the University of Chicago, but it kind of became part of who I am and part of my identity in my college career. And it's something I plan to continue for the rest of my life.
My name is Jonathan Idarola. I'm a Jewish student from Adelaide University, and I am accepting the Sharon Greene Award for Campus Advocacy for the Australasian Union of Jewish Students. I was just a regular student, not heaps involved in the Jewish community at the time, but my journey really switched when I started university. In my first year, there was a student magazine, and there was a specific article, "In Palestine, there is no ceasefire," and that ended with the lines, "Death to Israel, glory to the Intifada, inshallah it will be merciless." For me, that crossed the line. I had to speak out against this. In that meeting, it was one of the most horrific experiences I've had throughout my university life. The Jewish students were being heckled, shouted at, and laughed at, and ridiculed by all the student representatives on the council. It made me feel incredibly diminished. It made me feel like I didn't have a place on campus, and I couldn't be proud to be Jewish. The light at the end of the tunnel was that Jewish students managed to rally together and create a club, the Adelaide University Jewish Student Society on campus. Students have been able to feel proud and safe and comfortable and enjoy university life. What's happened through my university experience has made me have to become not just a regular Jewish student, but a Jewish student leader. The Sharon Greene Award for Campus Advocacy means so much to myself and the Adelaide University Jewish Student Society. It shows to us that no matter where we live as Jews, our voices matter.
My name is Sophie Kalman. I'm a senior at Emory University. I'm the president of Emory Hillel. I really was never afraid or even a little bit hesitant to speak about my Jewish identity or positive connection to Israel my first year at all. That became a little bit more complicated my sophomore year. I became really involved with Emory's APAC Padre. I was president, and after October 7th, it would happen constantly where I, as a Jew, was being put on trial for what's happening to Palestinians. In April of 2025, I was selected to represent my entire class in Emory College Council. The bill to confirm me was in front of the College Council, and a student who I'd never met before, never spoken to, stood up and was like, Sophie Kalman cannot be confirmed because she's a racist. She brings outside agitators onto our campus to harm Black and Muslim students, and for that reason, she's unfit to be here. I was just completely shocked. I've literally never done any of those things. And the vote failed and I wasn't confirmed simply because I'm Jewish and because I'm a Zionist. It just really catalyzed for me that something needs to change. I felt that my biggest challenge as Hillel president was really re-energizing a sense of Jewish joy on this campus. I really wanted to see how we could revitalize the student base and get as many students to come to Jewish events as possible, promoting nuance about Israel and ultimately making students fall in love with being Jewish. AJC has given me a real tangible roadmap to being an effective Jewish leader. Thank you so much to the Greene family for this honor and this recognition. And I just am so appreciative of everything you do for AJC and to make this world, this country, a better and happier and safer place for the Jewish people.
Please welcome Dr. Allison Greene, Dana Greene, and Josh Greene.
My siblings and I are honored to be here with you today to present the 2026 Sharon Greene Awards for Campus Advocacy. We are joined today by our wonderful family members in the audience, including our father, Bill Greene, my daughter, Edith Greene Irvin, and my sister-in-law, Amy Hunter. Our stepmother, Susan Feinberg Greene, intended to be here, but unfortunately is struggling with severe knee pain. Following our mother's untimely passing after a battle with breast cancer, our family established awards in her memory to honor young people dedicated to combating anti-Semitism, confronting the BDS movement on their campuses, and advocating for Israel's place in the world. In partnership with AJC, we are proud to recognize exceptional student leaders and organizations whose courage and leadership reflect the values that defined our mother's life.
Our mother was born in 1944 in Wynwood, Pennsylvania. She graduated magna cum laude from Tufts University with a degree in occupational therapy and began her career at New York Hospital. She later became an assistant director of an outpatient psychiatric clinic. Later, our mother continued her commitment to service by volunteering at the Bedford Hills Correctional Facility, where she helped develop programs for women who were incarcerated. She went on to earn a master's degree in social work from Fordham University, specializing in grief counseling.
Sharon devoted her life to lifting up not only her family, but her entire community. That spirit of giving was at the very heart of who she was. She spent her professional life helping people cope with trauma, offering them care and resilience. Her love for Judaism and Israel inspired her commitment to strengthening and sustaining Jewish life. She believed in social justice, in healing, and in the vital role of our next generation leaders play in building a brighter future. In many ways, that legacy lives on through us, each of us choosing a path rooted in service. As a nutritionist, a clinical social worker, and a public health researcher and advocate in underserved communities. The Sharon Greene Awards pay tribute to our mother's enduring legacy of generosity, devotion to Israel and the Jewish people, and boundless compassion. They also honor her and our belief that young changemakers have the power to shape a better, more just world.
Anti-Semitism has continued to rise sharply on college campuses worldwide, and Jewish students are still facing extraordinary challenges, including harassment, exclusion, intimidation, and even violence. Yet in the face of this immense pressure, they've responded with remarkable resilience, with leadership and courage, bringing deep pride to our community.
Across campuses, Jewish students have organized educational programs, created support networks, built coalitions, and stood firmly against hate and extremism, even when doing so came at personal cost. Their strength and conviction are a powerful reminder that young leaders are not just the leaders of tomorrow, but the leaders of that our Jewish community needs today.
It is therefore a privilege to present the 2026 Sharon Greene Award for Campus Advocacy to 3 outstanding organizations: Emory Hillel, Maroons for Israel, and the Australasian Union of Jewish Students. The student leaders behind these organizations have faced anti-Semitic attacks both online and in person. They have encountered hateful rhetoric, intimidation, and vandalism, experiences that would have caused many to step back. Instead, they stepped forward.
They strengthened their communities, created spaces of safety and belonging, and provided leadership during moments of uncertainty. At the same time, they worked to build bridges, foster dialogue, and engage their peers with confidence and with conviction. These organizations embody the spirit of our mother's legacy. Through their work, Sharon's values live on, not only in standing against hate, but in uplifting others and inspiring ongoing advocacy and leadership within our community.
To the students and leaders we honor today, your courage inspires hope, and your leadership fills us with pride and unity. Please join us in welcoming and congratulating Jake Reimer, Jonathan Arola, and Sophie Kalman.
Good afternoon. When I think about my generation, my mind goes to our past. This group of people is built on the stories and lessons passed down from generation to generation, Lador Vador. I am the child of a Jewish father born in a displaced persons camp in Germany in 1947, and a mother who is an Italian Catholic convert. Most importantly, however, I was raised in the Holy Land, Boca Raton, Florida. This unique background and upbringing has fostered my sense of self, which is unapologetically Jewish and always ready for an engaging conversation. I was only 2 weeks into my college career at the University of Chicago when October 7th happened. I woke up to a flood of messages and began checking on family and friends in Israel, fearing someone I loved had been harmed. Instead of support from many of my new peers on campus, I was called a genocider and later faced harassment for publicly wearing a kippah on Shabbat. Yet these experiences only strengthened my resolve. I drew inspiration from the generations before me who endured far greater hardships to make my opportunities possible. Rather than retreating, I chose to stand up and advocate for meaningful change. Since 1948, there has been a distinct Israel advocacy organization at the University of Chicago. Today, that organization is known as Maroons for Israel. Maroons for Israel's events are about Israeli history and the current conflict that are nuanced and consistently attract students from diverse backgrounds, faculty from all departments, administrators from the highest level, as well as city officials and the general public. Our Israeli cultural programs always have delicious food in true Israeli fashion. And we leverage the trusted relationships we've built with university and city leaders to advocate for the enactment of policies that actually make our campus and communities safer for Jews. Receiving the Sharon Greene Award for Campus Advocacy is a testament to the AJC's commitment to fostering and investing in the next generation of Jewish and pro-Israel leaders, those who are leading on campus today and who will be leading Jewish institutions around the world tomorrow. I am honored to be entrusted with that responsibility, and I will never stop fighting for the Jewish people. Before I close, I would like to express my sincerest gratitude to a couple of groups. To the Greene family for continuing to support campus advocates, to the AJC, to the Campus Global Board, and especially Moo Schlenzer for opening my mind to the diversity of Jewish perspectives across the globe, to the Maroons for Israel Board for your dedication and bravery, and for giving me the honor of serving as your president, and of course to my parents, Cheryl and William Reimer. I am here because of your courage, work ethic, and success. I will never waste the opportunities you've provided me, and I will ensure that the stories and lessons that you've taught me will forever live on. I will always keep the promise to never forget. Finally, I want to leave all of you with this message. We, the students and young adults in the room, are the future. Our ideas, our work, and our advocacy will lead all of us further than we have ever been before. We are the soldiers today fighting against this wave of anti-Semitism, and we will fight the next wave and the one after that. We are here, ready to help now, and we are not going anywhere. Thank you for supporting us, and please don't ever stop taking the time to listen to us. Thank you for an incredible Global Forum.
I would first like to thank AJC and the Greene family for bestowing this great honor. It is a privilege to be here to speak with you all today. I come from Adelaide, a city of over 1.5 million people and one of Australia's smallest Jewish communities, with around 1,200 Jews. Jewish life there is close-knit and strongly connected, but it also means that I often represent a minority. Throughout my life, I have often been the only Jew in the room. That started early at my local Jewish day school, which had just 18 students in total, only 3 in my year level. Throughout my time on campus, I have frequently been the first Jewish person many of my classmates ever met. When I started university, there was no organized Jewish presence on my campus. Unlike bigger cities with larger Jewish communities, there were no events, no visible structures, and no real sense of Jewish student life. As you saw in the video, the Death to Israel article and the events that followed created a sense of urgency for me as a Jewish student to protect myself and my fellow Jewish peers, and to ensure that no Jewish student should ever again have to face such treatment at university. Once the story became public, things got worse before they got better. I was called a dirty Zionist on campus,
and students would shout "Death to Israel" whenever they saw me. But those experiences reinforced something I had already begun to understand. Words matter. However, the article itself was not the greatest challenge Jewish students would face. What concerned me was what happens when hostility towards Jews is dismissed as acceptable, when rhetoric that would never be tolerated against any other minority is treated as normal, and when institutions choose not to act. That is why creating a Jewish presence on my campus mattered so much. With the support of the Australasian Union of Jewish Students, I had the privilege of establishing the Adelaide University Jewish Student Society. We built something that had not existed before, a visible, lasting Jewish student community in South Australia. A place where Jewish students could be proud of who they are. And that mattered even more in the years after October 7th. For our community and for our country, the past period has been one of grief and uncertainty. For Jewish students, it has also been navigating campus life with a constant awareness of what it means to be openly Jewish in public spaces. And then last December, the attack at Bondi Beach during a Hanukkah celebration brought that reality into devastating focus. It was a moment that shook the entire Australian Jewish community. I had always believed that Australian Jews were fortunate to be largely spared from the worst manifestations of antisemitism we saw making headlines overseas. Bondi shattered that reality. Suddenly, the headlines were no longer coming from overseas. They were coming from our home. In moments like these, you realize something fundamental. Jewish life cannot be carried alone. It has to be held by something stronger than the individual. It has to be held by community. And in my experience, that is what the Australasian Union of Jewish Students embodies. Each time a Jewish student chooses to walk into spaces where they may not always be welcomed, it reinforces a simple principle. Jewish students have the same right as anyone else to learn and participate. I want to thank AJC, the Campus Affairs team, and especially Moosh Lenzer for their unwavering support for Jewish student leaders around the world. With AJC's help, we continue to show up on our campuses, and we will continue to empower, to advocate, and to be proudly and unapologetically Jewish. Because Jewish student life is not defined by the moments that try to break it. It is defined by what we choose to build in response, and by the fact that we are still here, still standing, and still persevering together. Thank you.
Raise your hands if you've ever walked into a room with a sense of purpose, gotten distracted, and suddenly forgotten why you were there in the first place. Yeah, that's me just about any time I enter a room. While some, especially my parents, may laugh or see this as a sign of being disorganized, I view this as a strength. Every time I walk into a room, my curiosity takes over, and I discover new reasons to stay. It is an inherently Jewish trait to wonder. As Rabbi Heschel said, life without wonder is not worth living. Our wonder, and my curiosity especially, stems from my early years growing up in a Jewish bubble, something familiar to many in this room. I am a proud fourth-generation Texan. I was raised in Houston, yeah! I was raised in Houston, where I attended a Jewish school, had Jewish friends, and was surrounded by conversations about Jewish issues. Well before October 7th, I was on it. When I was in high school, I participated in the APAC Policy Conference, which sparked my passion for advocacy. And now, thanks to AJC, I am pursuing that passion professionally. At Emory, the environment on campus was vastly different than the Houston Jewish bubble. College was the first place where diversity was my daily reality, rather than a backdrop. So, I leveraged my curiosity. I built relationships with peers in student government, and I forged connections with students in several Middle Eastern studies classes with a range of viewpoints. Some couldn't point out Israel on a map, and others had very personal connections to Gaza, the West Bank, and the only Jewish country in the world. Last May, I helped bring a group of non-Jewish Emory student leaders to Israel. I watched my peers, bombarded by emotional and conflicting social media posts, sit across from journalists, activists, and people, living the realities we usually just argue about online. I watched them be uncomfortable, and then be curious and ask questions. When I saw my friend from Puerto Rico whip out his iPad and start taking notes, even though there was no test, I realized curiosity is much more moving than outrage. Students who wrestle with complexity become grounded. And staying grounded isn't easy. When my peers refused to confirm my elected student government position because of my identity and connection to Israel, I filed a complaint with the university, worked an exhaustive process, and eventually I was reinstated and then elected to a leadership position. During that whole time, I focused on what I could control. Through Emory Hillel, I helped organize our annual October 7th commemoration, our university's first ever week-long celebration of Yom HaAtzmaut, weekly Shabbat dinners, and a meeting with Israel's new Consul General to the southeast. Together, our community demonstrated resilience and joy, proving that Jewish life does not act just in opposition to hatred, but thrives because of who we are and the legacies we carry. Israel is inseparable from my identity. It's an imperfect place that I love with pride and nuance. What I ask of myself and of you is to resist the pull towards conclusions that require no mental effort. Do not let anyone else dictate how you engage with challenging ideas. I would not be standing here today without the support of Emory Hillel, which makes this experience possible for so many students. Thank you to the Greene family for supporting this award, which enables generations of students to be advocates for themselves as well as their communities. Finally, thank you to my parents who are here, Moosh Lenser, the campus affairs team, Dove Wilker, and the entire Atlanta office, and everyone at AJC for all of your support that empowers students by sparking and challenging our Jewish curiosity every step of the way. Thank you.
Please welcome AJC CEO Ted Deutch and President of the World Union of Jewish Students, Ariella Di Giacchino.
Wow, congratulations, Jake and Jonathan and Sophie. Thank you to the Greene family for supporting these incredible students and their organizations across the world today. Across the world today, Jewish communities are facing pressure, hostility, and uncertainty. They are standing up to it. We're so proud of those award winners. Nowhere are the challenges greater than for young leaders in the Jewish community. And this inspiring and resilient generation of young Jews who often feel isolated and tested, forced to find their voices in environments that can feel unwelcome and sometimes even hostile. But they're a generation that refuses to be defined by fear. From Buenos Aires to Sydney to New York, this generation is stepping forward, not retreating. They're a generation that understands that being Jewish, that standing with Israel, that speaking with clarity are not liabilities, they're sources of strength. At AJC, we know that these are not just our future leaders, they're leading today. And this morning, we are proud to announce a bold new investment that reflects that fact. Today, I'm excited to announce that AJC will partner with the World Union of Jewish Students on the first ever North American Summit, bringing together student leaders from across the globe with their peers from the United States, Canada, and Mexico. It will be a convening of leaders at the forefront of Jewish advocacy, a catalyst for connection and action. And through this partnership, AJC will bring to bear the full strength of our global network and expertise as the leading global Jewish advocacy organization, our relationships, our contacts in more than 40 Jewish communities around the world, our deep engagement with leaders across all sectors, and access, our global young professionals network, all to ensure that these connections will grow and will endure long after the summit. Over the course of several days, students will engage with their peers from around the world for whom Israel is not some abstract idea, but an essential part of their identity and a sense of security. That perspective matters, especially here and especially now, because when we connect young leaders globally, we strengthen not only their advocacy, but their identity. And we deepen not only their knowledge, but their important sense of peoplehood. We empower them to be proud Zionists who stand up for our community and the values we hold dear, and we remind them of a fundamental truth, that they will never be alone. This is AJC at its best, building bridges around the world, investing in the future, because with these remarkable religious leaders among us, I am quite confident that our future is very bright. Ariella, thank you for being with us.
So, thank you, Ted, and thank you to AJC, not just for this partnership, but for the clarity of vision it represents. In this very room, we have Jewish students from every corner of the globe, from Australia to Europe, from Latin America to Canada. They are here with one shared purpose: to play their part in building the future of the Jewish people. For us, this moment is not theoretical. It is personal. It is lived every day on campus and when we enter the working world as young professionals, in conversations that are sometimes difficult and at times deeply challenging. But despite the challenges we face, as you said, we are organizing, we are leading, and we are using our voices. At WUJIS, we are privileged to represent over 900,000 young Jews on the front lines of the fight against antisemitism and at the heart of the work to foster Jewish life. Students across continents, cultures, and communities. And if there is one thing we know with certainty, it is that when Jewish students are connected to each other across borders, across languages, and across experiences, they are stronger, not just during their time on campuses, but as they assume roles in Jewish leadership throughout their lives. These connections matter, and this is why this partnership matters so deeply for us. The North America Summit will bring together a truly global cohort of Jewish students, not just to meet, but to learn from one another, to challenge one another, and to build something together that is far greater than any one campus or country. Because the future of Jewish life starts with those who are living it today, proudly, courageously, and with joy, even in face of hardship. For the students we represent, Israel is not up to debate. It is woven into their identity, and is part of their family story, their sense of safety, their understanding of the world. Sharing that perspective, honesty, directly and proudly, with peers in North America who want to engage with Jews from all over the world, will create a level of understanding that cannot be achieved in any other way. And this will go both ways, because the diversity of experience, thought, and leadership among young Jews here will also shape and strengthen those coming from abroad. This is what global Jewish people look like, and not as an idea, but as a lived experience. And that is what we are building together. This summit is not just a moment, it is a movement to ensure that young Jews everywhere feel connected, supported, and empowered. A movement to invest in leadership that is resilient, informed, and proud.
We are incredibly proud to stand with AJC in this effort, and we cannot wait to see the leaders who will emerge from it and the future they will shape. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Years ago, Stanley and we noticed that AJC was missing a big part of the world in terms of the areas that it covered. It covered every continent on the globe except for Africa. So we took it upon us to bring Africa closer to AJC.
The original goal of AJC's Africa Institute was to bring Israel closer to the many countries across Africa. The challenge right now is that this has been a very difficult few years for the State of Israel, and many of its ties with countries around the world have moved further apart rather than closer together. With AJC's Africa Institute, we have not only been able to rebuild some of these relationships, we've been able to expand some of these relationships across the length and breadth of this continent.
Countries see Israel as a partner for innovative agriculture and water technology, so we thought that we could find points of contact with Africa.
And an example of this is the Agri-Tech Summit. The genesis of the Agri-Tech Summit is how can Israel really make a difference to many countries around Africa? And Agri-Tech in particular can be a real game changer where we can see the best of Israel come to Africa. The Agri-Tech Summit has been key in further cementing the ties between many African countries and Israel. Over the 3 days, we look at the current challenges faced in the region, on the continent with regards to agriculture, and how Israel and the United States and AJC's Africa Institute can provide solutions. And we also try and facilitate deals where we can see Israeli technology be a force for good on the African continent.
This agri-tech or commercial diplomacy that AJC has fostered has laid the groundwork for more and more African countries opening embassies in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem, and countless African business leaders and entrepreneurs traveling to Israel on project interchange, closing deals on joint ventures between their companies and Israeli companies.
AJC's Africa Institute is driving an incredible breakthrough as a catalyst for imagining a better future for both Israel and Africa. The more we do this work, I see a continent in 20 years which has deeper relationships with Israel, much stronger relationships with the United States, and has been much better impacted by organizations like AJC's Africa Institute.
I'm really proud to continue to be a part of AJC and to have the starting of the Africa Institute as part of Stanley and my AJC legacy.
In AJC's work to ensure that Jewish communities are safe and thriving, Israel's place in the world is secure, and the values underpinning democracy are upheld, one force is rising in both importance and speed, faster than most of us can fully comprehend: artificial intelligence. AI is already playing a central role in shaping how the present generations encounter Jews, Israel, and our history, shaping which images of Israel and narratives about Jews reach the broadest audiences. AI tools have the ability to produce both incredibly harmful and profoundly helpful content at an unprecedented scale. They can help spread anti-Semitic content that appears credible and authoritative. They can also help fight prejudice, safeguard Jewish history and culture, and expand its reach across generations and communities. This influence is real, growing, and increasingly personal. It affects how all democracies experience and interact with information. It is about how we consider truth itself, whether it is created rather than found. The question is not whether AI will shape the future of the Jewish people, but how, and whether we have a voice in shaping how AI is built, governed, and used. At AJC, we recognize that this moment is critical to our mission. As the global advocacy organization for the Jewish people, we cannot effectively fight for Jewish safety and security without seriously grappling with the technologies that are redefining both the threats we face and the tools available to us to respond. Building on our work engaging leading technology companies and experts, today's conversation marks an important step forward. We are delighted to be joined by 3 leading voices at the intersection of AI, extremism, and Jewish safety. Maya Ackerman, co-founder and CEO of Wave AI, who brings a builder's perspective on how AI systems are designed, what values are embedded in them, and how they can be developed responsibly. Matthias Becker, Address Hate research scholar at the Center for the Study of Antisemitism at New York University, whose empirical research examines how antisemitism evolves online, including how AI systems can both detect hateful patterns and inadvertently reproduce them. Brian Hughes, director of the Countering Antisemitism Lab at the USC Shoah Foundation, who focuses on how AI-driven platforms accelerate radicalization and the spread of hateful ideologies, and how those same technologies can be leveraged to interrupt pathways to hate and violence. Moderating today's conversation is Holly Huffnagel, AJC's Director of Anti-Semitism Policy, who has been leading AJC's engagement on online hate and platform accountability. Please join me in welcoming our panel.
Thank you.
I was going to say good morning, everyone, but officially, good afternoon. It's an honor to welcome everyone to this conversation, AI and the fight against anti-Semitism, the good, the bad, and what's next. For the Jewish community, this conversation matters profoundly because anti-Semitism always adapts to the dominant technologies of the time. From pamphlets to radio to television to social media, and now artificial intelligence is the next accelerant. And we know from AJC's data that 65% of American Jews are concerned that generative AI will spread anti-Semitism. And nearly 70% are concerned that the misinformation produced or amplified by AI will lead to anti-Semitic incidents. This is why AJC is in active conversations with social media companies, with AI companies. But we're not going to let the fear and concern dominate today's conversation. We're actually going to start with questions because the right questions can lead to the right solutions. And so I'm so privileged to be joined today by 3 distinguished guests, all doctors, I might add. So I am in a minority here and glad to share the stage with all of you. So Matthias and Brian and Maya, on behalf of AJC, thank you so much for being here. Let's dive right in. And we're going to start with the bad, what should actually concern us, not just as Jews, but as democratic societies. And each of you brings a volume of expertise. So Matthias, I'm going to start with you. We met recently, and you said this to me, anti-Semitism is not in our imagination. We have proof. So what is this proof, and what is happening in the online discourse as it relates to AI?
Thank you so much, Holly. It's very exciting to be here. Well, the prevalence of anti-Semitism is empirical, not imagined. For more than a decade, my teams at Decoding Antisemitism in Europe, and now the successor, the Decoding Hate Project at NYU, has studied a whole range of online content, hundreds of thousands of user comments and posts, And we can definitely say that there is a persistently high level of anti-Semitism, and primarily in mainstream discourse. That's the focus of our work, and it's never been excluded from this politically moderate sphere. Now, over the last few years, what has changed is not only that there's a surge in anti-Semitism since October 7th, we all know that, but the character of a discourse. So before October 7th, as soon as somebody had a problem with Israel or wanted to demonize Jews, it was highly probable that the person used, for instance, the Nazi analogy or the apartheid analogy or certain stereotypes. What we could see in the context of October 7th was this clear shift towards open celebration and glorification of violence, something that I've never seen before since 2011, since I've been working in that field. And of course, the genocide libel, which kind of leads to the conclusion, if Israel is committing a genocide, the conclusion would be that maybe there's just no right to exist, combined with genocidal ideas against Jews. And so conceptually, the discourse became far more aggressive, but structurally, at the same time, it remains sophisticated on a communicative level. So, of course, if people express death wishes, for instance, gas for Jews, or Hitler was right, I guess any content moderation filter can find that. But now, even today, under these circumstances, people express these ideas very often through innuendo. So, for instance, they are say, and you all know these slogans, by any means necessary, right? Of course, also alternatives for these formulations. Or if there's a Jewish name, and you put that Jewish name next to the word shower, if you have this historical knowledge, you know, okay, this is a reference to the gas chambers. Another example would be conspiracy narratives. Of course, people all the time alluded to the idea that Jews or Israel had some kind of a false flag operation, October 7th, Bondi Beach, Washington, D.C. shooting, and they can say it out loud, word by word, or they can just allude to these ideas. For instance, Dan Bilzerian, running for Congress from Florida, is engaged in a range of ideas about Israel and anti-Semitism and about Jewish communities here in the US. And very often below the line of his clips, you can find, remember, Dan is not suicidal. And everybody who knows about Epstein, everybody who knows about Charlie Kirk and the allegations that came up afterwards, knows that the idea behind it is, if he's dead tomorrow, we know who it was. And conspiracy narratives are not just forms of demonization, right? They are very often connected to feelings of self-victimization, anxiety. And when we look at the shooter in Pittsburgh, that person believed in the Great Replacement Theory. So self-victimization, anxiety, these are very often triggers for physical violence. When we now look, and just one word about that, talking about implicitness, talking about coded language is extremely relevant. If you just train AI or your content moderation tools looking for statements where you have the word Jew combined with an anti-Semitic attribution, you will never understand the full dimension of anti-Semitism because people are creative. So this is where AI comes in. Large language models are trained on human culture as it exists in text from the last 2 millennia. They are basically a statistical mirror of our cultural record. So the discourse I've just described is part of that record. So AI is reproducing these implicit biases and hateful constructions. It's inherent in the system. So AI is not inventing anti-Semitism, but it is becoming a weapon to spread it. It can reproduce and diversify open hatred, but also coded forms of anti-Semitism at scale and at machine speed. And this has never been existing before. We also can talk about, for instance, forms of synthetic consensus, that people are just expressing these ideas. Just one account with the right technical tools can spread the same idea in 100 variants throughout hundreds of accounts in unprecedented ways. And this is something like a turning point, and that we need to take seriously.
Thank you so much, Matthias. Now, Brian, if you want to add to anything Matthias has said, but in your work, you've been able to see in real time how anti-Semitism is adapting to current events and how AI and algorithmic systems are accelerating the problem, and often our responses are just too slow. Can you speak to this?
Sure. I think that most people by now understand that the algorithm, so to speak, is a problem, that the algorithm tends to prioritize fear and loathing and outrage, and that prioritization tends to favor hateful content like anti-Semitic content. But what I think we need to reconcile ourselves is to the fact that that algorithm is also interacting with people's preferences. People are revealing their preferences through the material material that they favor, that they like, and that they follow, and so on and so forth. So I think sometimes we think that if we could flip the switch from angry algorithm to happy algorithm or mean algorithm to nice algorithm, this problem would go away, and I'm not convinced that's the case. I think that anti-Semitism would just put on a happy face. So this is an emotional problem that we're dealing with here. And similar to the algorithm, I think people understand that AI produces more anti-Semitic content faster. There's more nasty spaghetti to throw at the wall to see what sticks. But AI is every bit as much a question of reality selection. People are choosing their realities through what they see on AI increasingly. And we actually see this where people will, they'll see an AI fake, they'll even become convinced correctly that it is an AI fake, and they'll continue to share it as an expression of their social and emotional beliefs and perspectives. So this is a social problem too. And this is really why things like debunking, sort of factual correction after the fact, not only can it not keep up in terms of volume, it's not really addressing the social and emotional problems, because people don't become anti-Semites through carefully weighing the facts. That's not how you get there. So the algorithm and AI, they're exacerbating all of these dynamics. But at the same time, as they're doing it, they're revealing those dynamics more clearly. And that really gives us an opportunity to zero in and find solutions.
Thank you, Brian. Maya, you are both an AI entrepreneur and someone deeply engaged in the future of Jewish representation in these systems. So from your vantage point, what is the greatest threat that AI poses right now, not just in theory, but also in practice?
I think the greatest threat is how slowly the Jewish community is waking up to the importance of AI. We have seen this with Wikipedia. We have seen this with social media. And by the time that the Jewish community started tackling these issues, it was too late. And we have seen how far our enemies have taken the digital realm to hurt us. I've been a Gen AI researcher since 2015, one of the earliest people to actually research and build in generative AI. And in 2024, I did the first ever analysis of anti-Semitism in generative AI. Nobody has done anything at that point. There was nobody to cite in my research paper specifically on how generative AI expresses its views on Jews. So for example, if you ask Midjourney, which is one of the most popular systems for creating content because it makes very beautiful images, so content creators like it, you ask it for sufganiyot and you get bagels. Okay, that's hilarious, wonderful. You ask it for Passover and you get Arabs eating bread. You ask it for Jewish women and you get various Indian and Muslim symbols mixed together. And we're doing nothing.
I don't think I could have said it better myself. Thank you, Maya. It's bad. It's really bad. Not to just do an abrupt transition to the good, because I think the bad will be woven into our next conversation about the good. But Matthias, I want to begin to talk about some of the solutions, because we have to start working. We're behind, as Maya said. Maya spoke to the urgency of the issue, and unfortunately our responses really aren't keeping up with these exponential changes that we are seeing online. And yet, Matthias, I'm going to quote you. We had a dinner a few weeks ago in New York, and you told me something that I won't forget. You said, even when things are so horrible, we are actually in a much better place now than we were before. So what do you mean by this? And tell us about some of the projects that you're working on that will really help societies move from reacting to anti-Semitism to anticipating it.
Thank you. Thank you for quoting me. There are a lot of ifs, for sure. Yes, so when I say we are in a much better place, I do not mean that there's less hate. Of course, there's an abundance of hate. But I think the turning point here for me is we can have fewer blind spots. So when you just go back in time, for decades, researchers could describe anti-Semitism, but could not systematically compare Jew hatred across longer timelines, social and cultural milieus, countries and languages. Why? Because we had traditional tools. The traditional tools were basically surveys and interview studies, right? Of course, surveys within Jewish communities, they are absolutely valid, and that's a very important part of our work. But when you actually want to do surveys about hate ideologies, what people really think about Jews, whether they control the White House and so on, there are, of course, aspects like social desirability. And they will always distort your results. So people might also, even when they're asked on the phone or like anonymously, they might not always say the truth. And that's an important factor. This is an artificial situation, very much narrowing down what people actually think and feel. And then, of course, you have interview studies where you can dig a little bit deeper, but at the same time, it's never representative. And now we're living in times when all the society discourse is actually moving towards the social sphere, social media sphere, and we can actually look at the responses from millions of humans, and sometimes not humans, how they position themselves towards topics like the war in Iran, like an anti-Semitic attack. These are self-motivated statements, and that changes a lot, because sometimes people just see a trigger, and there's an automatic response, and they just write it down because the communication conditions online are right, anonymity, and so on. So people are just sharing whatever is on their mind. And that's something that where we can trace attitudes and sentiment in a way that we could never do like in the 1990s, right? It's just important that we have the right tools to measure these trends. And I think for that, it is important that we describe and define the problem as accurately as possible. There's, of course, a translate glossary, translate hate glossary by the AJC. That covers a lot of also of coded anti-Semitism. We published an open access lexicon decoding anti-Semitism. Feel free to Google it and to download it. It's an overview of the most prominent stereotypes that we could find over 600 pages that not only describes anti-Semitism on the word level, what kind of statements, what kind of words and slogans and so on people use, but actually on the phrase level. How do people use rhetorical questions? How do they use metaphors, allusions, and so on? And that's always the condition, the precondition for scaling this kind of analysis. So if you use that kind of field work, where experts look at social media discourse and analyze it on different levels, you can translate that into external knowledge bases. For instance, you can train your AI to identify these patterns. Now at NYU, I started, as I mentioned before, the Decoding Hate project, where we look at different hate ideologies, not only anti-Semitism, but anti-Semitism clearly stands in the foreground. And then we work closely with data scientists that scale that analysis. And that we are doing with Address Hate, a New York-based think tank that tries to connect the dots between the different research communities, research centers in the US. So here the idea is to scale the analysis and to actually come to the conclusion where we actually stand currently. Why does this matter for anticipation? Institutions are very often reactive, right? Maya just mentioned that we are really behind certain daunting trends these days, a delay of various years, even decades, I would say. So institutions are reactive. They detect threats only once actors are named or attacks become imminent. So they consistently miss the opportunity to look at the discourse that is very often the first step towards these attacks. So when you think of, again, Pittsburgh, when you think of Halle in Germany, when you think of Christchurch, these people were absolutely not visible. They were not organized in any way, but they spread their ideas already online. And we could actually track that. So there's always some kind of a documentable discursive trail that we should look at, because this is, in times of lone wolves, this is the way how we can get to these ideas and to a clear indicator, maybe tomorrow something bad is really going to happen here in DC or in Melbourne or wherever.
Thank you so much, Matthias. Maya, you know very well how much of this conversation with AI focuses on risk. But where do you see genuine opportunity? How can AI help improve Jewish representation in all these issues?
The really cool thing about AI is that while it can become a great ally for our enemies, if we act early, it can be exactly the opportunity that we need. After missing the boat with social media, AI is now becoming the dominant source of information, the main source of information. People trust AI more than anything else. They trust AI more than social media. They turn to chatbots like ChatGPT and Gemini instead of using Google, and young people use these bots instead of Google in very, very, very large numbers. So this is becoming the main source of information, okay? And so when I say this, I still find Jewish people being discouraged. They say, oh, but Wikipedia is already so anti-Semitic, and social media is so anti-Semitic. Why bother? The AI just learns from all of this data. So, you know, whatever, not much we can do. But that's not true. Because over the past 2 years, the AI companies have been moving towards alignment. So instead of the algorithms sort of honestly representing what's in the data, we're finding that these chatbots and the text-to-image models are increasingly showing us exactly what the companies want us to see, okay? So it's becoming intentional, which means that instead of trying to control the whole world and trying to somehow manage what's happening in this big blob of Wikipedia and social media, we can go directly to the companies with clear technical and advocacy solutions. So for the first time, there is a path to correcting the digital world.
Thank you, Maya. Yeah. Brian, your work on pre-bunking, and I do want you to explain this term, argues that we cannot simply chase information after it spreads. Tell us how you're using AI, testimony, and behavioral research to help this resistance to anti-Semitism before people become vulnerable to it.
Sure. I think Maya very ably described technical solutions or approaches to solving this problem, and that's sort of the supply side. And addressing those social and emotional dimensions is addressing the demand side. So what if instead of people feeling those gratifying feelings of self-righteousness or powerfulness or part of some grand racial or social justice project when they adopt anti-Semitic attitudes, what if instead of that they felt disgusted and irritated by the mere fact that someone, in the words of Dara Horn yesterday, was trying to make a chump out of them by manipulating them? We have a technique that does that. It's called pre-bunking or attitudinal inoculation, and it's basically a hybrid of media literacy and counter-propaganda. It's a way of showing people and sensitizing them emotionally to the manipulative tactics that get people to adopt anti-Semitic attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors. And I have to pause for a moment to shout out our friends and colleagues at Boundless Israel, with whom we've done a lot of work and who are really some excellent leaders in that field too. What pre-bunking does is it diverts that gratification. Instead of feeling good, people feel bad. Now, it's not a silver bullet, but we have reams of data. I see stats that, I see phenomenal statistics that show that this works again and again. Now, the literature also tells us that testimonies ought to make this even more effective. The literature also tells us that testimonies work best when audiences are hearing stories from people that they can identify with. And coming from the Shoah Foundation, an organization that's founded on the testimonies of Holocaust survivors, that's both really inspiring and really daunting, because it tells us that there's potential here, but also that those very powerful Holocaust testimonies might not be enough by themselves today. So with AJC, we are working to collect contemporary testimonies of the Jewish experience and 20th and 21st century experiences of anti-Semitism. We're looking to collect the testimonies of Sephardi, Mizrahi, Ethiopian, Yemenite Jews, Jews under communism, certainly survivors of anti-Semitic terrorism, and also Jews from the 20th and 21st century in the United States and Europe who experienced all of that implicit and structural anti-Semitism. And the idea here is that this is going to make these messages more powerful.
That's incredible. We are in almost negative time, but I have to ask this last question because it was the good, the bad, and the what's next. And so in about 30 seconds each, I'm going to ask the what's next question, because all three of you are building tools and frameworks to ensure technology serves democratic society rather than undermine it. And so I want to end with this. What is the responsibility of all of us here? Thousands of Jewish leaders from over 60 countries around the world, civic leaders, educators, and allies in this moment. What do you recommend that we do now to shape a new future instead of merely reacting to it? I'm going to start with Matthias, and we'll go down the row again, and 30 seconds.
Wow, okay, big question. Well, I think in my opinion, we need a range of things, but this room is where these agendas can move forward, right? And I would say in order to fight a problem, fight a huge hate ideology like anti-Semitism, we need to understand how it operates. And my opinion would always be we need field work, we need research, we need that the different research centers actually work together with civil society organizations, tell them in real time how anti-Semitism looks like, because there's basically not much profound knowledge about how social media, how anti-Semitism on social media operates. And as soon as you have a clear understanding of that, you can translate that into, like in the context of knowledge transfer, towards education, towards policy, towards law. Because this is the most important part. If you are a teacher and you talk to your students, you need to know what your students are potentially consuming in order to build curricula that are really powerful for that, and not miss your target. And that's the same for conversations with social media companies, with AI companies. I think policy needs to know how bad the current state actually is, what needs to be done, not just some exploratory reports, but actually tools and dashboards that help us to understand where we stand currently.
Excellent. Maya.
I agree with that. That's a really important part of the solution. The view that I wanted to share with you today is that we need to start treating AI and the digital realm in general like the war that it really is. Life today is largely on our phones. There are people on their phone in this room right now. That's just the reality of our lives, okay? A lot of people, especially young people, spend more time in the digital realm than in the real world. Yeah. And so that means that, first of all, we need to treat the battles differently. Too often, I hear social media and AI being treated as the same thing. AI is a little special case of social media, which is insane, right? You're not going to treat two different battlefronts in the physical world as special cases of each other. And in terms of resource allocation, we are embarrassingly and dangerously behind. We need to make the kind of investments into AI, which is now becoming the dominant source of information, on par with the kind of investments that we make into physical safety in Israel and abroad. And that way we can... Yeah. Thank you. And the final part that I'm going to add is that you don't have different soldiers or different units make their own strategies when you have a war. And we need to learn how to work together in order to tackle this enormous giant, which I'm sure we will.
Brian.
Yes, I think breaking out of silos is the essential next step, and I'm very glad to hear again and again in conversations the past couple days and outside these spaces too, that people are ready to do that. We need to collaborate across organizations, we need to collaborate across disciplines. To the people in this room, to the extent that you can connect people across organizations and across disciplines, that's really something that you uniquely have the power to do. So I think that's the next step moving forward.
Matthias, Maya, Brian, thank you so much for this profound conversation in such a short allotted time. The systems can and must be shaped by our values. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Please welcome U.S. Representatives Mike Lawler and Josh Gottheimer.
Good afternoon, everyone. Josh, I have this box for you to stand on.
Thank you, Mike. Very funny, Mike.
For those of you that don't know me, my name is Zoran Mamdani. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you.
I think the air is clearer up here.
It
What
is.
goes on? Yeah, it's good to be up here.
You're not used to that.
It's amazing.
So it's great to be here with all of you. I'm Mike Lawler. This is Josh Gottheimer. As you can see, we get along very well. But it really is an honor to be here today. And I want to thank AJC and Ted Deutch and all the team across the board for the great work that is done combating anti-Semitism around the globe, and especially here in America. And I can tell you, as a Irish Italian Catholic, I'm no stranger.
You're not Jewish?
No.
I just read you were Jewish.
That's what some people think. But I am no stranger to experiencing anti-Semitism firsthand. As some of you may have seen just a few weeks ago, Rand Paul's son accosted me at a restaurant in Washington, D.C., and said that if Thomas Massie lost his election, it would be because of my people. And when I asked him who my people are, he yelled out, Jews. And I said, I'm not Jewish. And he said, you're not? I said, no, I'm Irish, Italian, Catholic. And he says, oh my God, I'm so sorry to accuse you of that, which is quite odd. But let me just say, Thomas Massie did lose, and I am proud of my people.
I've never heard Mike speak in such a short way. He's very Jewish that way. He usually goes on and on. It is an honor to be here, not just with Mike, but with all of you, with Ted, who's done an unbelievable job at AJC. And you know, one of the things we were just talking about is how shocking it is, of how blatantly naked it is to be an anti-Semite right now in this country. When you see the numbers, and it's not just in a bar when Rand Paul's son is accusing Mike of being a Jew, it's in every corner of our country. And these numbers are astounding. As we saw, anti-Semitic incidents up 75% since the 7th. And there's not a single Jew in America who can avoid this right now. But all of you being here, to me, is hugely inspiring, because you know what I know, that they will not win, and we will stop hate. Mike and I have, for years now, been working together, whether it's the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act to define anti-Semitism under the IRA definition, or just recently when we introduced legislation to condemn Hassan Piker and Candace Owens for their vitriol and their blatant hatred. We're not afraid. And it takes somebody like Mike, and I want to praise him for this. You know, I'm obviously, I don't know if you know this, but I'm Jewish. And it's easier for me to come out here and stand up against anti-Semitism. It takes extra courage when all of people who are not Jewish, who are willing to speak out at the level that Mike speaks out every day. And he does it privately to me when we talk. He does it publicly. He's unafraid. We need more people like you who are unafraid to speak out. Thank you, Mike.
Well, let me repay the favor. Josh really is a giant among men. Little height challenge, but ever still a giant among men. Josh has been among my best friends in Congress, and really I have enjoyed the opportunity to work with him over these last 4 years, especially on these issues, from combating anti-Semitism to standing up for the state of Israel and a strong U.S.-Israel relationship, and combating the malign influence of Iran and its terror proxy network, taking on the illicit oil trade between China and Iran that fuels the terrorism, funds their nuclear ambitions. We have worked together on so many issues that matter to Jewish Americans. And I think when you look at the challenges we are facing today, politically, in an ever-divided country, but it is the Jewish Americans who are under attack. Whether you talk about anti-Semitism, the fact that people are under attack simply for going to shul, going to yeshiva, being physically violated, hate crimes on the rise when it comes to Jewish Americans. And sadly, this has been normalized in the halls of Congress. People are being elected to public office on both sides of the aisle that think it is okay to traffic in anti-Semitic tropes. And Josh and I are unabashed in calling out people on both sides of the aisle, in the media, in elected office, and saying, enough. We're not going to stand for it. We're not going to tolerate it. We're going to call you out for the anti-Semites that you are.
And building on what Mike said, we know where the challenges lie, right? The good news about this moment in history is we can see the field clearly. We know who's with us and who's against us. We see the challenges, whether they're in the halls of Congress or online, the massive disinformation being put out there, whether it's by our foreign adversaries or people in the United States. We see what they're doing and what their intentions are and what their tactics are. Now it's our moment to stand up and make sure we fight back. We've got the knowledge, the resources, and organizations like this one that are unafraid to fight back. And whether you're talking about in K-12, in colleges, in politics at the local level or the federal level, we have to fight back and not be afraid. We can beat this hate back, but only if we stand together and work together. Okay, we can do it, but you all have to actually lead the way. Mike and I could do whatever we can in Congress, but it takes you to help us, to be out there every day. I just told Mike I returned from the UAE a couple days ago. And one of the most shocking parts of my meeting with some of their senior leadership was when they said to me in the middle of the meeting, "What is going on with anti-Semitism in your country?" Think about that. You have a leader of a Gulf nation saying to us, what is going on with anti-Semitism in your country, right? This is not who we are as a country. It's not our values. It's not what we're based on. But it is the reality right now. We can beat this back. I know we can, and we must.
I can't say it better than Josh. There is no question we are at a pivotal moment in our nation's history as we approach America 250, as AJC celebrates 120 years. This is a moment where we must be unified as Americans, not as Republicans, not as Democrats, as Americans. That's right. And to recognize that this hatred, this Jew hatred that we see festering all around the globe, it's not just a hatred of Jews. It's a hatred of America. It's a hatred of Western democracy. It's a hatred of religious freedom, of capitalism. It is a hatred of the Judeo-Christian values that are at the foundation of our nation. Exactly. And if we don't stand up now, if we don't fight back against this now, we will regret it. So this is a moment to come together. It's a moment to work across the aisle, to stand as one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please welcome AJC CEO Ted Deutch.
Thank you. What a video and what a global forum. AJC at 120, America at 250. Before I do anything else, I want to thank my extraordinary colleagues across AJC. So many people worked early mornings and late nights and weekends and countless hours to make these past few days possible. I especially want to thank our global events team, Claire Bailey-Blayfetter, Leslie Cleon, Lauren Emirovsky, Mara Stein, Kelly Mahoney, Bonnie Gluck, and Belle Yoeli for bringing this experience to life. I also want to thank my partner, AJC President Bobby Lapin. I want to thank the Chair of the Board of Governors, Melanie Nelkin, Chair of the Board of Trustees, Curtis Lane, our Executive Council, our Board of Governors, regional leadership donors, session chairs, speakers, and every person who helped make this global forum a success. And finally, I want to take a moment to acknowledge Jessica Wiseman, Elia Feliciano, to thank them and our entire security team who have worked around the clock to help keep us safe as we've gathered here. On Sunday evening, I shared my hope for our time together. I said that by the end of these 2.5 days, every person in this room would feel even more deeply that you are a part of AJC's next 120 years and a part of the next chapter of the Jewish story itself. Standing here now, that truth could not be more clear, because we've gathered here not in fear, not in retreat, but in pride. Proud to be Jews, proud of our history, proud of our values, proud of the state of Israel, and no amount of hatred, intimidation, isolation, or hostility will ever take that pride away from us. In the face of endless challenges, we remain one people, one community with an unbreakable story. In the Jewish tradition, the number 120 carries a really special significance. And as AJC turns 120, I think about all that this organization has witnessed. Pogroms, the Shoah, the rebirth of the modern state of Israel, wars and terror, and now the aftermath of October 7th. 4 years ago, when I joined AJC after my time in Congress, I inherited a responsibility that generations of Jewish leaders had carried before me. The responsibility to ensure that we leave our community stronger than we found it. And as we look ahead, we will deliver on that promise, and we will do it through 3 commitments that you have helped push forward. Ensuring Jewish communities are safe and thriving, ensuring Israel's place in the world is secure, and shaping a new future together. These are not just goals, they're our responsibility. First, Jewish communities are safe and thriving. Our safety is essential, but safety alone is not enough. Jewish life has always been about living proudly, openly, and confidently. I'll never forget where I was when I learned that every living hostage was finally home. I was in the Knesset, waiting for the arrival of the President of the United States. The room was filled with members of Knesset, diplomats, security officials, leaders from across Israeli society. And then word began to spread, quietly at first, phone to phone, row to row, until eventually everyone understood what had happened. Every living hostage was finally home. I will never forget that moment. The tears and the hugs, the overwhelming sense of relief after so many agonizing months. For a brief moment, politics disappeared. What remained was something profoundly human. The joy of knowing that families would once again be together. It was a reminder of what has always been at stake: human lives and hope. That's why this work matters. It's why we confront anti-Semitism wherever it happens, including on campuses where too many Jewish students since October 7th have faced harassment and isolation. Our work is not only to protect them, but to ensure that they can learn and lead and thrive, because there is no either or for us. We don't need to choose between standing up to anti-Semitism and building strong Jewish life, between security and identity, between vigilance and pride. We must have both, and together, I promise you, we will. Second, securing Israel's place in the world. The future of the Jewish people is inseparable from the future of Israel. For generations, For generations, AJC has strengthened Israel's place in the world by building trusted relationships with leaders who shape global affairs. From the UN to Munich to the halls of Congress, AJC is at the tables where decisions are made. Later today, many of us will walk the halls of Congress. We will tell our story. We will advocate for our community. We will thank heroes like Josh Gottheimer and Mike Lawler, and like Senator McCormick and Senator Fetterman. And we will remind leaders from both parties that support for the Jewish people and support for Israel must remain bipartisan and enduring and strong. But I learned early in Congress, lasting change doesn't come from a single moment. It comes from relationships built over time, from trust earned, and from leaders finding ways to work together even when they disagree. That understanding has always been central to AJC's work. That's why in recent years we've expanded opportunities for leaders to collaborate across political divides and across borders, from congressional initiatives in the United States to transatlantic networks in Europe to combat anti-Semitism and strengthen support for Israel. And in the years ahead, we will continue to build on this progress. We will create new opportunities for elected officials around the world to work together, to learn from one another, and take action in support of our shared democratic values. You know, not long ago, the idea that AJC, the American Jewish Committee, would have offices in both Jerusalem and Abu Dhabi, it would have seemed unimaginable. Today, it's a reality, and it's a statement of confidence in the future of the Middle East. AJC is the only Jewish organization with a consistent presence across the Arab world. It's that same vision that's helped to shape the next evolution of Project Interchange. As we know, for decades, Project Interchange has brought leaders to Israel to experience its people, its challenges, and its promise firsthand. Now, leveraging our presence in Jerusalem and Abu Dhabi, we're expanding those efforts through new Abraham Accords Project Interchange trips to bring elected officials, business leaders, and other influential voices not only to Israel, but now to the Gulf, to the UAE, to Bahrain. And in the year ahead, we will launch 3 Abraham Accords Project Interchange delegations. And this work is also not only about bringing others to the region. It's about showing up ourselves. We will stand with our colleagues and our friends and our family in Jerusalem. We will stand with our colleagues and our friends and allies in Abu Dhabi, because solidarity is not something that we express only with words. It's something that we demonstrate through presence and shared purpose. We will travel to Israel and the UAE, and I hope you will come with us. And just as we've helped forge relationships between Israel and its neighbors, we're expanding that vision into Latin America. I'm thrilled to announce an ambitious AJC-led initiative, the global partner of the Isaac Accords. This effort will bring together business leaders and investors, civil society leaders from Israel, the US, and across the Western Hemisphere. Together, we will deepen economic ties, we will drive innovation, and we will build new partnerships linking Israel with Latin America and linking Latin America with the broader Middle East. And at a moment when too many people question Israel's legitimacy, let us say something clearly. Israel is not a temporary project. Israel is not a historical accident. Israel is the democratic homeland of the Jewish people. We are proud of Israel. We stand with Israel. We will never abandon Israel, and we will never stop pushing to strengthen Israel's place in the world. And finally, number 3, we will shape a new future by building what comes next. That means investing in the young leaders who will carry this work forward. In recent years, I've met extraordinary young Jews, Jews who are proud of who they are, proud of Israel, and ready to lead. When I look at them, I don't worry about the Jewish people. I see it. This is more than leadership development. This is an investment in the communities and the institutions and the countries that these leaders will help shape. And every time I meet them, every single time, I leave with the same conviction. The future of the Jewish people is bright, not because it will be easy, but because they are ready. And with your partnership, this will be just the start. Leaders for Tomorrow, our high school leadership program, operates in 15 communities around the country, serves over 300 students. Over the next year, we will expand that to 20 communities, serving 500 students. Our Center for Education Advocacy is working with leaders like Chancellor Diermeyer from 50 of the most prominent universities in the country to fight anti-Semitism and to transform campus culture. Over the next year, we will double that and add 50 more universities. And today, we have 60 Campus Global Fellows, incredible university leaders, the best leaders in the world. Next year, we will have 100, and 15 new countries will be represented. Because the future that we want will not build itself. We must build it, and we are. A few months ago in Buenos Aires, I asked a group of students, I asked them what gave them hope. And one young leader said, your generation opened the door for us. He said, we walked through it. And then he said, and now it's our turn to hold it open for those who come next. I have thought about those words ever since. This is what every generation of Jews has done. Each generation receives something precious. Each generation strengthens it. And then each generation passes it on. That's what AJC has done for 120 years. And that is what we are called on to do today. We cannot ignore the challenges before us. The threats are real, and the work is demanding. But as we respond, think about the miracle of this moment. After everything the Jewish people has endured, after every attempt to silence us, and after every prediction that we would disappear, here we are, still building, still leading, still shaping the future together. For 120 years, one generation at AJC has made a promise to the next: we will leave you stronger than we found you. We will pass on the hope that has sustained Jewish life through every chapter of our history. That was their promise to us. Now it is our turn. It is our turn to strengthen it. It is our turn to shape it. It is our turn to pass it on, because hope is not only what brought us here. Hope is what carries us forward. Hope is what binds us together as one people. And hope is how we will build flourishing and beautiful Jewish communities for the next 120 years, and we will do it together. Please rise and join me in singing Hatikva.